I just spent a full month in Paris, and this is everything that I wish I would have known before my trip. We're going to cover a lot, going to give you some general tips that are going to make experiencing Paris a little bit better rather than just seeing it. Going to talk about some of the top tourist attractions and how to avoid the big crowds and make the most out of those. Going to give you 5 completely free options because you don't need to spend as much money as you think you do here. Going to talk about food options because there are so many, and of course, which area of town I ended up hanging out in most versus where I actually stayed. So the first thing to know is you might want to reconsider when you're considering visiting Paris. Most people try going in the summer or the fall, but I just did a winter trip and let me tell you, it changed Paris completely for me. There were no lines anywhere. It was just locals in the streets. It was just truly like that magical experience that I think everybody wants to have in Paris. So if you're on the fence and you're considering a winter trip, just do it. Yes, it'll be chilly, but there's so many ways that the city rewards you for visiting in that off season. Next thing that is pretty cool and you might want to be aware of is there was a recent regulation change where basically they're trying to reduce the amount of cars on the street, and it is working, which means it's completely changed how you as a tourist can interact with the city. It is far more bikeable now, walkable. It is just a truly peaceful and just, again, magical experience to wander the streets. So don't miss out on that and recognize the special time it is to walk around in Paris. Now, a quick logistical tip for when you are walking the streets. I know a lot of people are concerned about, hey, what about bathrooms? Are there good public bathrooms available? The answer is yes. Just look for these things, and when you do find one, feel free to scan these QR codes on them. It'll show you all the public restrooms around Paris that are just like this, so now you know that. Now, one mistake that I see tourists make a lot is when it starts raining outside, all the tourists seem to jet inside and pack the museums and restaurants and everything else. Don't do that. I found the most rewarding experience over the last month was just wandering around, especially at night on those rainy nights. The streets are pretty much empty except for the locals because they are not going to let the rain crash their fun, and it is just a really unique and special way to experience the city. And another mistake that a lot of tourists make, and this will really enhance your experience, is being afraid to use the metro and getting outside of that touristy center. Most tourists say, hey, I don't want to deal with public transit, it's intimidating, and they get packed in the tourist section, and it means they don't really experience Paris. Paris is more than just that tourist district, and what you'll find is each neighborhood has its own culture, its own quirks, fashion changes, food changes just a little bit. Everything is really different and unique, so I'd really recommend if you're wanting to get the most out of your trip, make sure to branch out of that tourist center and go and explore. It really is rewarding. Another thing that's really important to recognize is that because Paris is so big and does have so much to offer, it's a different experience for everybody. Don't think that just my Paris experience or your parents or a friend who told you about Paris is the Paris experience. You get to make what you want out of this, and whatever you put into the city, it will give right back. Go and find and make your own Paris experience, which again, I'd encourage you to just explore. And if you feel like you don't know where to start, don't worry, I have a guide that will kind of point you in the right direction and give you some general ideas. Now, before I jump into some free options, let's talk about some of those top destinations that you are probably going to want to hit on your Paris trip. The first is probably the Louvre, the big museum, and yes, it is fantastic. It is well worth your time. But there is one thing that I want to warn you about. You might notice online that a lot of tour operators are offering skip the line tours, and they're often on all these like third-party websites. Please just ignore those entirely. They're not real. There is no such thing as skip the line. What people are really referring to there is if you pre-book your ticket, meaning you have a timed entry, you don't have to wait in the line to buy your ticket, but everybody is going to have to wait in the security line. So just don't go and waste money on a tour operator that's offering that skip the line unless you really, really value having that guided tour. But another big attraction that I'm sure you want to go and see is the Eiffel Tower. A tip around this is just note that you can pay for different experiences. You can walk up the stairs, or you can pay a little bit more to take an elevator up. If you're slow on mobility, I would definitely recommend the elevator. It is worth the time. But my biggest tip here is actually around the time that you visit the Eiffel Tower. Most of the tours are going to be happening in the morning and afternoon. So for us, we decided to wait until it was dark outside. And that was really rewarding because there were basically no lines. We did not pre-book our ticket. We walked straight up, got straight on the elevator and up at the top. And it was kind of surreal. There was nobody else on the top of the Eiffel Tower. So I'm not saying you're going to luck out and quite have nobody up there, but if you do wait till the nighttime, you're definitely going to have much, much smaller crowds. So consider that if it's something that you're looking for. Another Another top attraction that often tourists completely miss are the Paris catacombs. And I am guilty of missing this my first few times in Paris. We just did it and it was truly the most unique and just rewarding experience we've had, not just in Paris, but maybe anywhere in the world. Do your research on what it is. It is truly just fascinating history, so much to explore down there, and there's obviously reasons why I'm not filming down there, so please be respectful if you go, but it really is worth your time. And one other really unique paid experience is the Opera House. If you're somebody that values theater and just fancy buildings and wants to see history, this place is pretty unbelievable. I mean, just a gorgeous theater. You have a museum component. They've got a beautiful dining hall where they were setting up for a gala that I could certainly not afford, but it is just a wonderful experience if you value that sort of thing. I would recommend booking your tickets in advance because they do sell out each day, but it is well worth your time. But let's talk about some of those top free options because you just don't need to spend much money in Paris if you don't want to. The first spot is this canal, and a lot of tourists just never make the effort to venture up here, but if you do, the canal really does provide just a beautiful area to walk by. Next place is this little park, and it's in one of my favorite neighborhoods in town. It's really small, but this park packs a punch. You can see a little bit of wildlife. It's always filled with locals. I really love these ping pong tables because, I don't know, I'm just weird and I get a kick out of watching different cultures play ping pong. It's just a really unique spot to just sit and watch locals. I assume you already have Notre Dame on your list, and yes, it is beautiful, but I could make an argument that this church is actually a bit more beautiful. There's not going to be as many people. No, it is not a hidden gem. There are still plenty of tourists, but it is just a gorgeous church. And if you're looking for an area that is just quiet, away from the tourists and will really just be peaceful, this cemetery is one of the best in the city. It is just gorgeous. Obviously, I'm not filming because I want to be respectful, but it really is worth your time. I am filming this part from within the cemetery where you can look out over the Eiffel Tower. I'll put like a pinned map location in the digital guide, that more on that in just a second. And arguably the best place for a walk in Paris is along the Seine, which is the main river that cuts through the city. It's just gorgeous, but don't make the mistake of just hanging out where the tourists are. Walk the length of the river, or as much of it as you're willing to. The scenery changes quite a bit. You'll find locals all throughout. It is just gorgeous. Even if it's at nighttime, you'll see locals dancing in the streets. People in the summer will be sitting there with bottles of wine, having picnics. It's just a gorgeous place to walk year round, so don't miss that. It is a really special place. Let's talk about some food recommendations. Now, I'm just gonna give you the highlights, couple top restaurants, coffee shops, places that I don't think you can miss, but all of my recommendations are again in that digital download guide. It's completely free, so make sure to check that out if you're looking for more recommendations. But my top restaurant is probably this spot called Freddy. It's this tapas style bar that is just, it's lively, it's energetic, the food is spectacular, like wonderful value for the quality that they're putting out, and it's just really a great experience. Just be sure to get there early because they do fill up quick. It is a popular spot. If you're looking for a really intimate dinner setting, there's this spot called Coda, and it's traditional French cuisine, a little bit innovative, really fresh quality ingredients, fantastic meal there, beautiful setting. I really recommend them. If you're looking for a place that can accommodate a slightly larger group but still has that really great cuisine, there's a spot called Uno, and it is just in this really local area of town, very close to where I stayed. I loved that spot. Great cuisine, very innovative dishes, high quality. It's not going to be at that sky-high Michelin prices, but it's not cheap either, so just be aware of that, but it's a great option. Now, 3 cafes that I want to shout out. My number 1 is in the first video, so you can go back and check that out, but a new one is called Harvest. This place was wonderful. Really good coffee, wonderful like healthy dishes, cozy environment, just one of those things that I'm looking for, and I spent a lot of time there. So Harvest, it's a great option. It's fairly new as well. If you're looking for a real like hole in the wall, this is pretty well known, but when hole in the wall, I mean it's really tiny and it's Boot Cafe. Gosh, this place is just cute, overflowing with character. There's only like 3 tables in it, so it is really small, but if you're lucky to grab one of those 3 tables, it's just a great place to hang out, really kind staff as well. Now, if you're looking for a cafe with more food options, Cafe Maricourt is just unmatched. One of the best brunches in the city. Again, cozy environment, great staff, really good food, decent coffee, just a spot that I really do miss and somewhere that you'll definitely enjoy. Now, if you're a coffee lover, and when I mean coffee lover, I mean somebody who really loves the craft of coffee, like you're serious about it, there's a spot called Substance Cafe, and I'm putting it on this list because it's the best coffee experience I've had anywhere in the world. It's run by one guy. He owns the place. He is so passionate about coffee, the most knowledgeable guy I've ever met about coffee, and it is like a coffee tasting, an experience. He's gonna find the perfect cup of coffee for you. You're gonna learn, you're gonna interact with others in the community. It is truly, truly special, and I highly recommend it. If you're somebody who's looking for a great nightlife scene and really cares about those fancier bars, there are 3 of the top 100 bars in the world, all within like a 10-minute walk from one another. What's so unique about these 3 spots is each one brings its own style and flair, but the one thing that's consistent is wonderful service, great cocktails, and just great environment. If you are looking for one of those special nights out on the town, you can't go wrong with these 3 places. Highly recommend. Now, let's talk about where you might want to hang out and stay in Paris. Like I said, everybody creates their own experience. So my personal favorite of where to hang out was La Marais, which is a neighborhood that is kind of split between the 3rd and 4th district. It's just a fascinating place to people watch and hop from cafe to cafe. I just really enjoyed spending my time there, but it's not actually where I stayed. I stayed in this Airbnb out in the 11th district. This Airbnb was great and perfect for what I was looking for. It was clean, it was affordable, and in a local area of town, because again, you don't have to spend up in Paris if you don't want to. We loved it because it had a projector, it had laundry, which was important to us on a long-term stay, had a full bedroom with a little office so Sarah could do her work. Like, it was just comfortable, clean, and again, in that local area of town, which is really what we value. But what's most important is what you value and to create that own Paris experience. So to give yourself the best opportunity to really enjoy Paris and create your own experience, definitely check out part 1, which has completely different tips. Nothing is repeated in this. And also, if you want to just see my unfiltered thoughts on staying in Paris for a month, you can watch this video right here. I hope this was helpful, and we'll catch you guys next time.